Welcome to episode 141 of the Necronoma.com. I am James Sabata, horror author, screenwriter, co-host of the podcast you're listening to right now, and I assume that Billy Chapman stopped wearing his beard because he mistook it for a mask and it was encroaching on his freedoms.
And I'm Don Guillory, author, historian, educator, and co-host of this podcast. And you know what? I will punish you, which has a completely different meaning in 2021, thanks to TikTok, than it did back in 1984 when this film came out.
Oh, man.
Not kink shaming.
All right, then. So joining us today, Paul Michael Anderson is here. Welcome back to the show, man.
I'm so happy to be back in talking about the Christmas spirit of punishment and naughtiness. And it does sound like we're kink shaming at this point. Let your freak flag fly, audience.
Yes.
But if you're into dressing as Santa, please pull your beard up. Even if the beard doesn't want to and she's tired and just wants to go to bed. Okay.
See, and now I'm reminded of Bad Santa with Billy Bob Thornton. And I had to explain that movie to a Bible thumper colleague of mine because she asked. And I got to that part and she was like, enough. Because I got to the fuck me Santa part.
Surprisingly, we didn't have a scene like that in this movie.
Oddly enough. I mean, and yeah, especially with the way they like filmed the actor who played Billy Chapman.
No kidding.
We'll
get into all that.
They liked him. The camera.
So, yeah, no kidding. He's like an early thirst trap. It's very strange. But Paul, tell our listeners about yourself, man, and where they can get your books and things.
I am one of Santa's less than merry elves, but I'm also the author of the novellas Standalone, How We Broke with Bracken McCloud, I Can Give You Life, and the collection Bones Are Made to Be Broken, all available at your finest independent bookstore or online retailer. And I'm so delighted to be back here and talking within the Christmas season because I love Christmas movies and I love trashy horror Christmas movies, and it's amazing.
Yeah, we were actually talking about doing another film, and then you accidentally mentioned this, and I was like, whoa. You're willing to do this? Okay.
I'll all day long. I mean, I still want to do the other film at some point, but
we'll get there.
But because it's good. But
no, I think this rolls into what you were going to say. What is it about Silent Night, Deadly Night that brought this up and made you choose this?
When I was a kid, and we're all, I think, roughly the same age. You might be a little younger or older than me. I'm 38.
Yeah, we're both older.
Okay.
I'm 33 and Don is 84, but black don't crack. So you would never know.
I'm jealous that you're closer to the grave than I am. My kids have been having birthdays in their classroom. They're like, oh, it's my birthday. I'm like, you're so lucky. And they're like, why? I'm like, you're closer to the grave now. And they don't know if I'm joking or not. But in any event, growing up, the mom and pop rental stores and stuff, rent movie stores, my Saturday night I'd be renting trashy movies. But before then, when I was a kid, my mom would be renting movies and I'd walk past the horror section before I fell in love with horror. And I just remember the iconic, like the hand with the double bit axe outside the obviously fake chimney. Right. And so when I finally got a chance to see it in my teen years, when I was not in the right mind to watch it, because who is in their teen years, when they're left to their own device, I was like, this is the stupidest, most amazing movie ever, because I had not yet seen Christmas Evil. And then when Shout Factory was like, we have a special edition, and I had royalty money to burn, I was like, yes, I will make this financial decision and buy the special edition, Silent Night, Deadly Night, because it is the epitome of everything that's nonsensical in the Christmas season, but with an axe. Mm-hmm. And I just love, so like when people are talking about bad horror, they talk about Christmas movies, you always think of the standards. And then I always go kind of left turn and I think of movies like The Ref and Bad Santa, right, and Harold and Kumar Christmas and Silent Night, Deadly Night. The ones that just kind of upend everything. I always love that stuff.
Nice.
How many editions of of Christmas Carol can you watch or make now that you've made Muppet Christmas Carol, which is the epitome? So you gotta go dig it.
Well, when we get the Muppet version of Silent Night, Deadly Night, we'll know we're really on to something.
Oh shit! Who would play Billy Chapman? Gonzo.
No, I think it would be Animal.
What about Ralph? No one would suspect him.
Actually,
Ralph would probably be the toy store owner.
No, that's Fozzie. That's Fozzie.
No,
well,
what would happen to be is
Piggy scenes.
Fozzie would have to be the killer Santa from the beginning. You know,
Nice.
he's at the gas station at the convenience store. And then he's trying to tell a joke to make the guy laugh, and he doesn't laugh, and he pulls out the gun and robs him. You know,
that works. That works. I can see that. I don't know. You gotta go with one of the unsuspecting Muppets. Like, how about the one that goes Beaker?
Oh, I was about to say, yeah. I was about to say Beaker would be the one.
And you have to keep the male gaze, like the female gaze view of him as they do in this film. You have to like look at Beaker so lovingly that the camera lens is almost getting moist just looking at him.
Now I just want to see Sam the Eagle as the nun.
Oh my God.
I think we've got a movie, fellas.
I think we do. Fuck Meet the Feebles.
Now I'm picturing Rizzo at the end, just naughty, you know. But anyway, so let's jump into this actual film, and you're the guest, so you get to lead the way. What would you like to? You want to go chronologically, or chaos mode, or do whatever you want?
I always like. I mean, last time I was here, we did chaos mode because I like chaos mode because then the conversation kind of rolls. The thing that bugs, and because I was taking notes, I was actually being critical about the movie. As James, you saw in my notes, I was so academic.
Yes.
19. But in any event, I think what the thing that bugs me, but also I love it so much, is that it makes no fucking sense. Like there is no logic to him snapping or any of the murders or literally any of it in the context of a Christmas movie. This movie should have been about Lent. It should have been because other than the Santa killing his parents in the strangest way possible, like he hates the nuns. So who gives a fuck about Santa? Go dress up as a nun then, you know, which should be amazing.
Well, yeah, then you start getting into into the world of Psycho with that one.
Yeah, or Sister Act, but made by John Waters.
Look how many movie ideas we're coming up with. This is great.
Yeah,
Somebody write all these down.
We should write all this down. I'm sure someone from Disney is listening to this. Like,
where's Josh Mallerman and his manager and Max Booth, the third manager? We're with the sparks of these golden ideas just grinding out, and they're not listening yet. And they
exactly.
I'll have to send it their way. They follow me on Twitter.
They follow me sometimes too, but it's more like dark alleys and they yell mean things. Anyway, it's unimportant right now. But so that's me following them now that I think about it. Never mind. This whole thing has gone wrong. Off the air, one of you said it, and I can't remember who, but said, "Why isn't he killing Santas?" And that's the only thing I could think through this whole fucking film. I'm like, you were scared of Santa. Santa killed your family. Like, what in the fuck says? What about this says? I should dress as that guy and kill other people instead.
Yeah, I think about it from a writer's perspective. I can kind of see what they were trying to do. He epitomized what his vaguely conveniently catatonic grandfather was saying about being naughty, but it's always wrapped around because they wanted to show that actress's chest as much as humanly possible. The Santa that killed his parents, but they never developed it. So like when he first puts on the costume, because their Santa got sick or broke his ankle. It's like, why? I wrote in my notes, why did he just lose his shit? Like literally right there. Like if it's so traumatic, being Santa on Christmas is so wrong for him. Why didn't he just like take that bow and arrow and just stuff it through the store owner's head,
Yeah.
But if he had done that, that'd be a much shorter movie.
Plus, they have to give us that creepy moment where he's got the kid on his lap.
in 2021 perspective, that whispering is so wrong.
That's pretty creepy. Yeah.
Naughty. It's like, whoa, dude, she's 6.
Well, and it also tells you, it gives you an idea, especially with 1980s parents or 1980s parenting, how estranged parents are from their kids in a lot of cases, this kid is having a meltdown on Santa's lap, but that's so normal for kids. It's excused of like, oh, well, she's just she's seeing Santa. She's scared of Santa, but they can't hear him say, have you been naughty? Have you been naughty? You're going to be punished if you've been naughty. They're not hearing any of that. So they're just thinking like, oh, well, little Sarah, she's just a little nervous, but then she gets quiet because, if you're not quiet, I'll come and, do what I forgot what the line was. But you get the understanding that this kid is now really scared. So she's like, oh, I'm going to shut the fuck up because this guy has something going on. And the mom is like, oh, he's so good with kids.
That's what I was getting to. Like the punchline to that whole scene is like, wait, what? I mean, I was a latchkey kid. Like I think we all were at that time. But Jesus, I would hope my mom was a little more aware than that. Well, I could read the scene a little bit. Like, look at this sweating, obviously young guy leaning into my daughter's face and saying something to her.
Something that just upsets her more clearly.
Well, what? Before we even get into that, I wrote down in my notes this whole idea of just the whole Santa lore itself is weird. And then I guess more recently, I don't know how long it's been around, but the whole elf on a shelf thing is just weird. And I remember seeing a breakdown of it, and someone wrote, I can't remember if it was a scholarly article with, child psychology or an op-ed, but they basically stated, you are preparing your child for a police state by endorsing this whole thing of elf on a shelf. Like, oh, well, I can't be trusted to do the right thing. I have to have somebody watching me to do it. And I'm only going to do the right thing if somebody's watching me. So you're not teaching them to actually do the right thing or behave or conduct themselves the right way. It's just simply, well, I'm going to be sneaky and do shit when I'm not being watched, or I'm just going to get accustomed to being watched to where, got surveillance everywhere. You have cops everywhere. You have all this stuff here to where you can't really worry about deviating. But the whole idea.
Yeah.
But the whole idea of Santa is just weird. And even the whole sitting on the lap thing with Santa is just, I mean, not that anything inappropriate would or is possibly, but just the whole idea of it is we teach kids, stay away from strangers, don't talk to strangers, except for this guy who's going to give you candy. One guy that's going to
if somebody gives you presents
after you sit on his lap and tell him what you want.
Yeah.
No.
I mean, I've noticed that. I mean, James, I think your kid's a little younger than mine. Mine's 10. We're starting to hit.
Yeah, she's 6. Yeah.
We're starting to hit that iffy area with my kid. But she still believes. I stopped believing when I was like 7. But I noticed when we go see Santa, like it's a lot different than when I was a kid back in the 80s. Back in the 80s, they would like, were you naughty and stuff like that. Now it's like, oh, were you good? They turn it in a more positive way? Because you're right. Like the elf on the shelf and Santa in the traditional sense, very Calvinistic.
Oh yeah.
And it seems in the past, someone, or maybe it was like a gradual sea change in our culture. It's like, maybe not. Maybe don't do that. Because I was listening to my daughter talk to Santa. This was only a week ago, actually. And it was very like, oh, you've done good things for your friends. And you've done very highlighting the positive aspect. And I was like, okay, I can kind of get down with that. But I remember when I was a kid, it was like, were you naughty? Did you respect your mother and father and all that kind of good stuff? And it was like, well, one, my dad's not in the picture. So, yeah. But back then, you watch it in 2021 perspective, and it's so jarring because we're so used to those awkward family photos of like kids screaming on Santa's lap. But if you notice, they aren't recent anymore. Mm-hmm. They're all like our childhoods. Yeah. They don't like my daughter when she was 6 months old, and it's the best Santa photo I've ever seen in my life. is on Santa's lap, and she is howling because we were at a Christmas party and she was tired. But she was 6 months old, so she was basically a screaming potato. And
yeah,
that's
it's always little babies when that happens.
Yeah, it's never toddlers or young children anymore. But back in the day, that was commonplace. You know, when A Christmas Story, Ralphie and his brother, like that was standard. It was, you didn't even bat an eye at, like, oh, that's weird. No, nowadays that would happen. That'd be, but back then, not at all.
You brought up Elf on the Shelf, and we do it in our house. And what I've noticed from my daughter that just fascinates me is she's always mad at the elf and the like chaos that he caused. Because I'm me. So, you know, this elf is like ripping up candy and breaking pretzels all over the kitchen counter and stuff. And she's like, he made a mess. Well, one of the things that he did, he drew on the pictures of her brothers, like dry erase on the frames, right? Oh, she was so pissed off that he would have the audacity to ruin these photos.
Good on her.
And so it's not like he's a little policeman reporting on her. He's like this chaotic force that she's just like, what is wrong with this guy? Why would he do this?
I've noticed that a lot of parents are kind of going the same way. Like the elf is the one misbehaving. And it's basically like the kid has to correct the elf, like show them how to, like, no, you don't write on the picture frames. I can't. Funny enough, I'm so glad my kid never got into Elf on the Shelf. She saw it around and she kind of was like, my wife and I debated it, and then we were like, no. But I think the intent was more like what Don was saying from that article, but it seems becoming more of like, no, I'm going to correct the elf because the elf's a little asshole.
Yeah, and it wasn't intentional, so cool. But that's how it's turned out, definitely. And I do agree. I'm seeing that everywhere. It's fascinating.
We always see those memes now of the, like, you know, the It action figure, the Michael Myers action figure torturing the elf.
Oh, love it.
Like,
oh yeah.
I'm almost bored of that by now because you see it so often. I like how we've already stopped talking about the movie.
Oh no, we're gonna go
naughty.
Back. It's just
we're gonna be punished.
Speak for yourself, buddy.
I think this all ties in though. Like,
oh yeah, it does.
Like this is all the weird Christmas lore, and also places you could go with Christmas movies, and that would make sense instead of what we got.
Like, yeah, anything would make more sense. It was obvious they were cashing on Halloween because that came out in 78. And when did part 2 come out? 1980, 82, something like that. So like there was already a franchise for Halloween, and you saw that in that time period of all those holiday themed horror movies. And that's why I was wondering if Silent Night Deadly Night hadn't been filmed earlier. Just because it was so obviously ripping off from that, except they tried to make it from the killer's perspective instead of Jamie Lee Curtis and Dr. Loomis, Donald Pleasance. Because the thing makes absolutely no sense. But then again, if you actually stop and think about it, Halloween makes no sense.
Right.
It's just really well made. So we all like it.
Well, here's it to pick up on that. My mom is absolutely the best person to watch a horror film with if you want commentary. And I mean, as far as like, you're going to that one movie theater, you know, people are going to talk to the screen because you're like, I want a full experience. Yeah. So when we watched, I think she was here for the newest Halloween movie, and she's got so mad. She's like, this doesn't make any sense. Why is Michael Myers just going around killing people? This isn't okay. and I'm sitting there thinking like, holy shit, you make a point. Why the fuck is he going around and killing people?
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh no, I was gonna say, and that's honestly what's going on here is you have that moment with Billy where you kind of like, why are you just going around killing people? Same thing with Candyman. Why are you killing poor, marginalized people? Because these are the ones who did it to you. Well, the newer one makes more sense in the fact that he goes after, or at least it's not targeting people who have already been downtrodden, marginalized, anything like that. Whereas, in the sequel, they explain more of, how he was brutalized and things like that, and how he should have gone after, or how he could have gone after the descendants of the people who did this to him, as well as the people who did it to him. And that was always and James, we had this discussion years ago about like, that was always the problem that we had with Candyman was he went after the poor people in the Cabrini projects, as opposed to people who had some sense of agency. And the same thing here with Billy. It's like you're going after, I guess, a combination of two things. One, the trauma of seeing your parents killed the way they were killed. Yeah. And then two, the way in which the church or the orphanage itself dealt with your trauma, which was to not deal with it.
Yeah, his killing spree at the end is so random. And I wrote in my notes, we have 12 minutes left, and I think we're finally getting to the point of what he's doing. Right. Because up until this point, he's just randomly killing people. He kills that Joe Pesci motherfucker. I literally wrote that in my notes. Hey, look, it's Joe Pesci. Wait, his name's Andy. In my notes. He kills the woman he was was almost sexually assaulted, which doesn't make a lot of sense.
No, not at all.
He kills the store owner. He kills the clerk with the sharpest practice arrows ever. Yep. He kills the bullies on the sled riding hill, which makes sense, kind of, because they were bullies. So slasher rules confirmed. But then Leah Quigley, who I didn't recognize the first time I saw, I was like, oh, wait, Return of the Living Dead chick. No wonder your boobs are out. But it was 12 minutes left until credits. And I was like, oh, wait. Oh, he's going back to the orphanage. We figure this out. I watched the unrated version, which is 85 minutes long, and it added nothing to the story.
Okay, that's the one I saw.
Yeah, and you could tell when they swapped to the new scenes because it wasn't transferred as well. But yeah, it made they had no point. Halloween, Candyman, that you point that out, he was targeting the marginalized. I always kind of accepted that because he was like a Bloody Mary type figure. If you called him, he's going to kill you. Right. So I always kind of accepted that. The reason I mentioned I was like Candyman was great. It's just because I love the idea of, and this is probably from my influence of Harlan Ellison, is I like the idea of mythical figures trying to stay existing through the belief of others, and that's the premise of Candyman. Is he gets mad at Virginia Madsen because you're trying to say I'm just a myth, I'm real, and these people worship me. And when you say I'm not real, I get less powerful. And I always like that because it's, again, that Harlan Ellison influence. I was like, that's a really great idea. Fuckers already wrote that. But Silent Dead Night, Halloween, they make the killings are just thrown up. Be like, oh, we've had 10 minutes of talking and set pieces, so let's get to someone dying on antelope horn. Have either of you read Grady Hendrix's new novel?
No, I haven't.
The Final Girls Support Group?
No, but I've heard things.
Yeah, I've heard from people about it.
All right, I will say this. We're jumping around, but it's chaos mode, so fuck it. His main character is based on Linnea Quigley's character in the movie.
Okay.
Basically, if you read the novel, you can trace which movies they're all made up movies that they're all made up killers in the novel. But if you're a horror movie fan at all, you can pick out, oh, that's Heather from Nightmare on Elm Street. Oh, that's Jamie Lee Curtis from Halloween. Oh, that's Linnea Quigley from Silent Night, Deadly Night. And it can get in the way if you're a horror movie fan, but it's actually really fun. And I was rewatching that scene. I was like, oh, wait, I remember this from Grady Hendrix's novel.
That's great.
Just a little book recommendation for you. It was actually pretty good. I liked it more than I liked the vampire novel.
I was gonna say, I haven't heard anything bad about it. So yeah.
Yeah, one of our good friends, S.A. Bradley, he's a big Harlan fan and absolutely loves Grady as well. And so he talks about that book a lot. So I've been wanting to check it out. I've just been crazy busy, but now I want to check it out even more after listening to you say how it ties into actual stuff that I'd be familiar with.
Oh yeah. There's a Friday the 13th person, and he kind of tips his hat. The person who the Nightmare on Elm Street, her name is Heather, like the actress. I think our main character, it's told from her perspective. I don't think her name's Linnea. I think it's something else, but something close to that. Maybe Denise, because I think that's her name in the movie. But yeah, it's kind of clever. I was like, oh, I got it for my birthday, and I was like, it sat on my nightstand because I wasn't that happy with the vampire novel. I thought it was too slow. I thought he was trying to do things he wasn't skilled enough to do. Good enough story, I guess. I've liked other works, but I was like, oh, okay, I've reaffirmed my love of Grady Hendrix's work because it's fun popcorn books. Mm-hmm. I like that. But no, nothing about this movie makes sense. Starting with that carjacking, that doesn't happen.
I mean, I would even go further than that. I would say starting with the grandpa, because we never come back to this. And I have no idea what the fuck really happened here.
I wonder if they were watching a rough cut of the movie and they're like, wait, why is he suddenly so scared of Santa? And like, they needed to explain it to lay the groundwork. I wonder if that came like the last day of reshoots. Because, yeah, the grandfather just kind of, I'm catatonic until I'm not, and then I'm catatonic again, and you will never see me again. And it's... Well,
I was going to say, the thing with the grandfather, it struck me as, I forgot what that movie was with Paul Newman, where he was pretending to be in a catatonic state, and then Linda Fiorentino's character threw him into the lake or into a pond to kind of wake him up, so he would admit to her that he still has one bank job that they haven't claimed all the money from. But I got the sense from this guy, he's like, oh, fuck, my kid and my daughter-in-law are coming. Shit.
Yes. Like, he has no time for this shit. I get sponge baths and I get 3 squares a day, and here you come trying to make me better. Fuck you, son.
Well, not only that, but they're visiting him on Christmas Eve. Like, that's a weird time to visit somebody in, I guess it wasn't a state hospital, but it was a mental hospital. It was a facility, and it just seems like a strange time. And then on top of that, nothing was decorated in that place for Christmas.
No, it was obviously some waiting room. I wonder if it was like the waiting room at the production office, because it didn't look like a nursing home. It looked like the lobby of a motel. Yeah,
because even then, I mean, if it had been. And even if he was a patient under care, under watch, right? Which it doesn't seem like he was. It does seem like it would have been one of those places where they would have been a little bit more festive. They would have been trying to improve the lives of any of the residents or any of the patients. And I mean, this completely threw me off. Where it's like, nothing about this seems like it's Christmas until, other than Billy talking about, we need to get home. I need to see Santa I need to get to bed before Santa shows up.
Can you imagine the greatness if, following Grandpa and his little rants, if there had been like another resident who was like, obviously, like full blown dementia or something, coming at him dressed in Christmas shit, and how much this kid would have freaked out when there's nothing wrong happening, but just the situation, right?
That would have been amazing.
They could have done great stuff with that.
I spent that entire scene wondering where I'd seen that grandfather before. I never Googled it because he looked vaguely familiar, like a character that you'd seen in like old sitcoms or TV shows, like the guy who leads to the guy who leads to the killer kind of thing in a cop show. And I'm like, you look vaguely familiar, and you have 2 minutes on screen, and you're going to distract me this entire time. Because and that's fair, because nothing he says is actually that relevant, other than like 3 lines of dialogue afterwards when Billy's now scared of Santa.
I think you could chop all of that. Like, if they would have just started this movie with going down the road and, hey, we're heading home, and then this happened, I think it would actually be a way stronger movie. Adding all this weird shit beforehand brings it down for me.
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, no, I was going to say, yeah, if you had it to where they're coming home, like, we just know that they're going home before Christmas Eve or on Christmas Eve, and they happen to run into Santa. They've already had this discussion in the car about, oh, yeah, Santa's coming. We got to be careful. Make sure that you're a good boy. And while Santa is, after he's already killed the dad, but he's, going to kill and rape the mother, he says like, oh, you've been naughty, I'm going to punish you. If he had said some shit like that, I think that would have stayed more with him, as opposed to, pretendo grandpa sitting there thinking like, oh, if you haven't been a good boy, Santa's going to punish you. Oh, your parents are coming.
Yeah, I'm going to space out again. It makes no sense. And that carjacking itself makes no sense. But you point that out. Like, they're driving for hours, apparently, because they're worried about getting home, to see the catatonic grandfather on Christmas Eve for no other reason than, hey, let's go visit Grandpa and drive 3 hours.
They seem like they stay for 2 seconds as well.
Yeah, they're not there very long. So, wow. It's like going to a doctor's office, waiting 3 hours in the waiting room just for him to say, yeah, you have a cold. Here's your bill. I feel
like today this could easily be a Skype call. It's
yeah. You should have just Googled WebMD. Yes, they're gonna tell you you're gonna die, but so am I. But that getting to the carjacking and the I'm air quoting rape of the mother, definitely sexual assault, because nothing about that scene makes sense at all. Like, okay, is the Santa's car broken down, or did he just feel like killing someone? If it was broken down, did he steal the car? Because other than there are 2 bullet holes in the windshield, it's a perfectly usable car. He was apparently planning on sexually assaulting the mother, but after she screamed with the blouse being torn, he's like, fuck it, and just killed her and then walked away. And then did he really just leave a baby screaming? Like, nothing about that scene makes coherent sense. And I was sitting there watching going, wait, what? Where'd the cops come from? It was apparently a deserted road. Like, I could just pick that scene so badly. They kept throughout the movie, they would constantly flash back to not necessarily the dad spilling out of the car with the bullet hole in it. I loved the gore in this movie, by the way. I thought it was pretty good. It's always the mom getting her blouse torn, which, if for those of you in the audience who have seen the movie, you know, at that point he had run into the ditch, but the shot is overhead over the Santa's shoulder as he's tearing the mother's blouse, which I'm like, there's no way that kid would have seen it from that angle, nor remembered it from that angle. So that is just for the audience and the producers. And it made me I just wanted to Google all these actors and what they did before and what they did after, because Billy is a grown up and Linnea, well, we know what Linnea Quigley did. And all these, and like the grandfather, I'm like, were they known for these things beforehand? Like the grandfather looked like the one guy from Twin Peaks to me for some reason.
I could see that. Yeah.
Doesn't it? I've never watched, I only know Twin Peaks from screenshots because I don't watch horror television. I've realized about like no Black Mirror, none of that. I just don't watch horror TV. I don't have Shudder, which is apparently
get off our show. No, I'm
I know, right? I have Tubi, and Tubi is just as good.
Tubi's fucking great for horror films. It absolutely is.
It's heavily underrated.
I
preach the gospel of Tubi, and maybe they'll sponsor me and they'll give me like money if I say this loud enough. Like Tubi,
I don't know. Jeff Whitmer's been doing it nonstop, and nobody gives him money. So
Tubi's getting all this free press from the horror community. Doesn't show us any love.
Damn it.
Well, they had to pay the streaming rights to, what was that show? Major Pain or the Major Dad? Major Dad. That was it. I think they have that on there. And, you know, Alf. I introduced my daughter to Alf through Tubi, and she like binged the entire 4 seasons.
Oh my God. You didn't let her watch the finale, did you?
I did.
Finale. Oh, sad day.
What, when he goes back home to Melmac?
And gets caught?
Is that what they told you? And your dog went to the farm upstate? I understand.
that ending. I don't know when Quantum Leap ended, but did you ever realize like that ending, Alf's ending, and Quantum Leap's ending, they are just incredible down notes.
Oh yeah.
They are.
No, I'm one of the people that preaches the greatness of Sam Beckett never getting home. And all of my friends hate me for it.
That's a great ending. That's an existential horror of an ending. Like, holy shit. Like, you are forever trapped. And that's very Harlan Ellison, actually. This is a Harlan Ellison. I should read him tonight.
Ties in.
What?
I said it all ties in.
It's all happening. But no, I said this before we were recording. I said this in notes, and actually I'll pull up my notes. And because I wrote my notes in chronological order as I was reacting to it. My God, these notes go on forever. But this movie should have been about Lent. It should have been about the nuns, and that would have been a much more interesting movie. The Catholic, and it would get popular because the Catholic Church would hate it, and they'd go after it. They would have gotten so much free publicity.
I think it's funny. We were talking beforehand about how we're all ex-Catholics, and I don't know about you guys, but if I was Billy, that nun would be my number one target.
Oh God,
100%.
yeah.
Like, I kept waiting.
I don't understand how she's the last one. Like, that's where it should have started. Like,
and
that makes sense.
Lives.
That's revenge right away for the things that she's actually doing to him. And then you could have the things like him seeing the other nun having sex, and that could trigger flashbacks or whatever.
Yeah.
You could still do all of that. But I feel like this movie is in the wrong order. Like,
yes.
if these murders made sense and then it went to chaos killing, I think it would make a lot more sense.
Or, and you could make a really good horror piece. Have either of you read Thomas? I'm going to say his last name wrong. Ligiati. He wrote a novella called "My Work Is Not Yet Done," and I read it at the worst time in my life to read such a thing. But the great horror of the novel is this guy. He's like basically a corporate drone. If you haven't read it. And he gets these powers, or he gets laid off, and he gets these demonic powers, and he exacts revenge of everyone who's ruined his life because basically he was married to his job. But he only has enough power to do horrible things to, I think, 5 people. It's been like 15 years since I read it, and he ends up wasting it, not even thinking about it, and the reader doesn't even notice it. He ends up wasting on like some lackey who's kind of a dick to him, but doesn't really have any power until he gets to the final boss, essentially. And his end of the bargain's over with. He can't even get his final revenge. And that's the way the novella ends. Spoiler alert. And it was so fucking great. I was like, that'd be amazing. So they had structured the movie where she is the final revenge, and he could be denied his revenge against her. But they built it in such a way that it was clear from the get-go that that's his goal instead of something that came up in the script 2/3 of the way through. I thought that would have been a great, because I love that kind of horror. I love it. Like, there's nothing worse than you have the means, but you are denied the use of them. Okay. It's like aggressive helplessness instead of just helplessness by circumstance or by situation. Your helplessness is you thought you had it, but you don't. What kills me is, have either of you watched the sequel?
No, I was going to watch it before this because I didn't realize there were so many sequels. There were like, I guess they go up to 5.
5. Yeah.
5. And now we're getting a reboot. Yay.
Yeah. Hopefully they can fix that. But yeah, there are 5. Only the first 2 are really connected. The third one's sort of connected to it, and the rest are not. The second one is a joke. It is a joke, even though it seems like it's set up like in the end of the first movie, like there's going to be a sequel, and there is, and it follows that one kid that ends up being his brother. Literally, of the barely 90 minutes of runtime, a good half hour of it is just a rehash of the first movie, like straight up. Like they just pull from the first movie, things that he couldn't have seen, but he's telling it. And it's mostly known because Bill of the meme Garbage Day, because he goes on a shooting rampage at one point. He gets the Mother Superior. He actually does get her. Okay. So there's Bill's brother got her, but not until the fucking sequel that no one saw.
So our friend Brian Haas over at BS Movies Podcast, I was hanging out with him yesterday, and he was telling me about the sequel, and basically the way he told the story, and I might fuck this up, so I'm sorry if the details are wrong, it's me. But he was saying that they went to other producers and just tried to like give them the first movie and be like, hey, let's move some things around and we can make another movie. And people were like, that's not how movies work. You can't just use the same footage. And then they found a way to just use the same footage.
That could be right. I have no idea.
He said it was like 40 minutes of it or something. So yeah.
Oh, it might be even more. Yeah. I knew it was at least a half hour because I watched it about 3 weeks ago just because I had always seen the meme and I'd never bothered watching the sequels. I still have not seen 3rd through 5th because I know they're not related. They're just by title only. They're like 3 versions of Seasons of the Witch. As opposed to that one, they aren't cool. And I finally sat down and watched it because I want to see the meme. And I was like, oh, I felt like I was debating not rewatching the original movie at all and just going off my knowledge based on what I saw in the sequel. Because they used so much of it. And it's funny you say 40 minutes because it's like more than halfway through the movie of the uncut version before Billy finally snaps. Like it takes a long time to get going. I thought it was way longer than it was. And I pull out my Blu-ray and I look at the time like 85 minutes. Are you fucking kidding me? Because the orphanage scenes take forever. The store, the toy store scenes take forever. And then he's just kind of rambling along for a half hour. But it's only 85. It's not even a full 90 minutes. Not even. You could chop this. It is ready made for TV if TV allowed that many boobs or hammers through the head.
Well, even then, I mean, there's a way they can shoot it. They can definitely shoot it to where it's like, oh, huh, isn't that interesting? No, there was no naked person here, or just leave it open to interpretation in some cases.
But speaking of the sequel and of the first one, like apparently their genetics, the dead parents' genetics were amazing because both Billy and his brother, who I cannot remember his name now, Timmy or something like that, they are fucking beefcakes. Like, holy you look at the villains of other slashers. Freddy Krueger looks like was picked last in every game of kickball ever. Jason Voorhees, well, beyond if you ignore the face, he kind of looks like that kid who always sat in the back of class and wouldn't stop talking about anime and wear sweatpants that needed washed. My God. Michael Myers is the theater kid who's gothy, and scribbles dark lyrics in his journal that no one can read ever because they're his feelings. Candyman's like the jock because he looked good. He looked good, but like. Then you have Billy and his brother who look like they should be Chippendales dancers. And I was like, that's at least unique. Mm-hmm. I have to give it up. That's at least unique for as much as male gazy as this movie is. And it is because literally if you are female and you are under the age of 50, your tits are getting shown in this movie. That camera loved. When they reveal Billy as an adult in the toy store when he's getting his job, I sent this to James. I was like, meow, dude. Like, I'm very comfortable with my sexuality as a straight male, but even I was like, if I had a vagina, it'd be moist now because he looks good. I want to be him when I grow up, just without the Santa fetish.
At least wear the beard. No.
I have a beard. I'll just have to color it and let it grow a little bit, but get some ZZ Top in. But I was like, that's at least a little different. Like, because every villain, and I wrote about this when I was doing the promo work for Standalone about the morality of like slashers. And this one does fit into the slasher sort of formula. He goes on a rampage after people start drinking after that Christmas party. Mm-hmm. Illicit drinking,
punishing sex and punishing all kinds of sins. Yeah,
that scene bugs me. Not the killing of the Joe Pesci looking guy, who, by the way, why wasn't he asked to wear Santa? He's shorter and fatter than Billy.
Well, he's not the new guy.
That would really ruin the movie, Paul. I mean, come on.
Apparently, I just love the fact that he looked like Joe Pesci from My Cousin Vinny.
No. You bring up a good point because why not have him dress up in the suit, right? He gets his break and he sexual harasses his coworker. Billy walks in on him and then chops
little flashback.
Yeah.
Perfect. Yeah, that would have made. I like how we're basically workshopping how to make this movie not suck.
We do that a lot on this show.
And he can still run around killing people. I mean, you've got to have him dress up as Santa so somebody mistakes, somebody else for him, which would be great.
Yeah.
But even then, I mean, you could have him just going around, like you brought up earlier, going around killing all the Santas that he sees, because now it's like, oh, he can't break from that. Which again, it's weird for me that it's gone on for what are we talking about? 13 years. So it starts in 71. You see him in the orphanage in 74
with the awesome mullet.
Yeah, rocking that thing.
Hockey hair.
He had to have lashed out at one, not necessarily violently, but he had to have lashed out more than once with regard to Santa Claus, because we get that one moment where, the Mother Superior
places him on his lap.
Yeah. Which even then, that's fucking weird.
Yeah. I wrote the same thing in my notes. I was like, there needed to be more. I completely agree.
Mm-hmm.
I wrote the same thing, like there needed to be some altercation when he was a teenager. We see him when he's 10, wearing the mullet, actually looking a lot like my students, because I teach in a really rural mountain area. I was like, you look like some of my students. Holy shit. But I wrote my notes like, there's nothing that says I'm going to go nuts with an axe at one point, other than I'm afraid of Santa, which is kind of like a fear of clowns, I guess, sort of, especially given his background. But yeah, they did the barest minimum work to explain why he went nuts. Like they needed a reason. They obviously had the killer in mind of a guy dressed as Santa with an axe. And then they're like, well, okay, how do we get him to that point as quickly as possible? And it doesn't. But actually, by getting back to that sexual assault thing, like I understand Santa killing the Joe Pesci looking motherfucker. That made sense. Like he's about to rape a chick.
100% made sense.
Although I do wonder, when he drops, and maybe I blinked at the wrong moment. Did he like stab him or anything? Because when he drops the body from the Christmas lights, being hung by the Christmas light, his neck is covered in blood. And I'm like, I don't think Christmas lights do that. I could be wrong. I
mean, maybe some of them broke off and did it, but maybe. But yeah, that was one of those things where I kind of questioned the gore that was there, kind of like questioning the fact that you can impale somebody with a deer's head.
That kill is great.
Oh, I loved it. I loved it.
And we'll get to that. But yeah, no, that's great. But my problem was like then he kills the Pamela is her name. I actually because it took a minute for me to get her name because this was one of those movies where they aren't really clear. They aren't in a hurry to tell you who everyone is. Much like Zack Snyder's Dawn of the Dead, where you never know who anyone fucking is. But when he kills Pamela, the woman who was victimized, I was like, wait, she didn't do anything wrong. Mm-hmm. What's wrong with you? Like, I get the store owner. He was drunk. That's wrong. And the clerk, she was trying to run away. Okay, I get that. But like, she's an innocent. Leave her be. And that's when I was no longer on Team Billy. It was at that moment, not at any other point.
I think that would actually be really strong as well. If he slaughtered everyone else in there, and like, even if he like kind of like pulled a knife on her or whatever, you know, like he's about to kill her, but then pulls back. Like I think that would be really strong. Like connects it to his mom. Like, oh, my mom died in a very similar situation. I'm not going to do that. Not even that. It's the whole, if everything is about punish, she didn't do anything to be punished for. Exactly. Although on a technical level, at that point, the movie gets like 50% replaced by, if I say the term dog shot, does everyone know what that means? I don't. I do not. It's a term I got from George Romero on the commentary of The Crazies. Basically, a dog shot is when you need coverage, but you don't necessarily have coverage. So have you ever noticed that watching a movie and suddenly they cut to, not even establishing shot, but like cars going past, people walking by in the middle of a scene? It's because they didn't have enough coverage. And in the old days, you would just take a picture of a dog. Like there might be a dog. If a character has a dog nearby, cut to the dog. What's the dog doing? It was called dog shot. And I don't know. There's actually a current name for it. I don't know what it is, but because I was just picked the Romero version. He's like, oh, this is a dog shot. That's a dog shot. That's literally a dog shot because there was a dog in that shot. And if you notice, especially in the Toy Story scene, I know they're putting him in there to build tension, but they undercut the tension. Like after he kills Joe Pesci, his name's Andy. After he kills Pamela, after he buries the hammer in the store owner's head, which was actually kind of cool. And he's like stalking the clerk. Like there's the intercut of the chase there, quote unquote, is like with shots of like the toys, not like shadows passing the toys, not screaming in the background. Just, here's a train. Here's a doll head turning. Here's Santa. It's like a Santa statue. And 50% of this movie, if you go back and watch it yet again, which I don't think James wants to, I'll watch it in the sequel. Is literally just them cutting away to some random dog shot, like the sled riding scene, which I'll get to. Like they show this Virgin Hill, which I have opinions on calling it that. So many times in the 2-minute scene of the dorky, I guess, sled riders and the bigger, I guess, bullies. And I was like, were these all fans of film and they just wanted to make a film, or are they just that incompetent? Like, because if you have a passion and you want to make a movie, okay, cool, I'll forgive a ton of sins. But I strongly suspect these people knew how to make movies and they just didn't know how to make a good one. Like they knew the technical of how to do it, but they did not know narratively how to do it. So that's Toy Story. I always wonder with stuff like that, how much of it is time or money from producers or just different things like that. Because if you don't have time, you might rush it and just, hey, that's the script we have. Let's do it. But like that kind of stuff fascinates me, and I have absolutely no idea what this. So I don't have anything else to add.
No, I'm the same way. I'm the same way. But I mean, I can imagine the common story is, we ran out of money. I'm like, you inserted so many random shots. Like you had time to film those shots. Because if you had no money, you definitely didn't have a second AD. So what? So that's a narrative fail for me. But the movie is like when they killed this Toy Story owner, and before then he's like bitching about how lame the party is. And I wrote in my notes, there's 4 people in a toy store and you're complaining about the party that you started.
Right.
4 adults in a toy store. Yes.
Yeah. And you're like, this party sucks. I'm like, you started it, motherfucker.
You had to know more women to invite. Jeez. Oh.
We had Pamela and the one who looks like
Mrs. Randall.
And she looked like the lady from Gremlins.
Yes.
Is that her?
No. That's what I was trying to. That's one of the people I was comparing it to, because I think in my notes when she came up, I wrote down Gremlins, and I was thinking about other movies to compare this to.
She looks like the lady who hates the dude's dog in Gremlins. I was like, is that her? I actually wrote in my notes like, I should Google this, probably won't.
Well, they didn't have a chairlift, so it definitely wasn't her.
Oh yeah.
For anyone who hasn't seen Gremlins, there's a scene with a chairlift. So
I'm looking at my notes and I forgot about this. Like after they reveal Billy as an adult, they had that montage song.
Yeah.
And I was wondering how much they paid for, because it sounds like a hobo Joe Cocker.
Well, I mean, they either that or they just they paid for all the licensing of those toys, but because
it's funny you said that, because you can see clearly at one point a little Tykes box.
Oh yeah, all the labels are clear. So it made me question the whole thing about when licensing really became people became sticklers about licensing of products in movies or unapproved licensing in a film. Because I'm pretty sure the people at Smurfs did not want their toys being seen in a movie where there's a killer Santa Claus.
I wrote directly, how pissed was Little Tykes over the unwanted product placements? And I wrote in my notes, think of the movie if Joe Pesci had been Santa. I'm just going through my notes like, what else did I write? Because now that I see it now, I'm like, this is great. 44 minutes into the unrated movie, that's when he finally breaks. Mm-hmm. One of my notes is, titties again. The older, here's the note I was saying.
You could probably write that note about 14 times during this film.
I think titties is the word I wrote the most in most of these notes, because it's just random.
It's more than random. It's just one of those. I mean, it's definitely intentional on the part of those making the film. But as far as the story, it has no place at all. But then again, I mean, at this point in the 80s, with a lot of these films, one of the ways that you make your mark with the horror films is how many boobs you have and how much blood you have.
Exactly. So, and actually, this is pretty tame, blood-wise.
Oh, yeah.
Titty-wise, it's pretty extravagant. It's almost Skinamax level.
It really was, yeah.
Especially because they kept flat. Like, they had Leah Quigley, they had the Pamela character, they had the mom, but then they kept flashing back to the mom. So it seems like there's more boobs than there are. It's only 3 people. But still, it's 3 people that you just see kind of every 5 minutes.
Well, and there's sex scene in the orphanage, and
oh yes, I forgot about that. Speaking of nuns, I love the fact that the store clerk that he killed with a bow and arrow, again, the sharpest practiced bows in the history of cinema,
which he controls really well.
He does, but remember, he was able to do it because the door was locked, supposedly. Like she couldn't get out. She was going to take the axe to the window and get out. And then at the end of that scene, the nun just walks the fuck in.
Yes.
And I went, what?
It's one of those doors that only opens from the outside.
I started watching this on Friday night. I finished watching on Saturday morning before I got my daughter up. And I literally went, what? Like so loud. I never noticed at that point, because I've seen the movie a few times, because again, I proudly own the special edition Blu-ray, but I never paid much attention. When you watch a movie, And I think that's the thing with a movie like this. This movie, we're critiquing it and being kind of vaguely academic, but this movie was never meant to be critiqued academically. This movie is meant to literally, like, I call them popcorn. They're pure. I mean, that's not an original term to me. But it's total popcorn. Like, check your brain at the door, like the John Travolta, Nick Cage movie Face Off, and just enjoy the show. The problem with this movie is it does not know how to put on a show because it falls apart under the slightest bit of scrutiny.
Well, here's how the movie would work, though. If this were a completely in the I guess in the same vein as Mystery Science Theater 3000, where this was an audience, a film that's made for an audience to be reactive to, where you're sitting there talking, dialogue doesn't matter because a lot of the dialogue gets repeated. I mean, there are a lot of things in this film that get very repetitious when it comes to this whole idea of his trauma and things that are going on, or the boob shots. I could imagine all of us sitting there while we're watching this at, Film Bar or one of these other, private
midnight show, like a cult movie.
Yeah. And we're just sitting there like, he saw his mom's boobs again.
Take a shot.
Yeah.
Actually, I could see this as a Rocky Horror kind of cult thing. Like everyone dresses as Billy or one of the actresses or the Mother Superior. And that would be fun. That could be a lot of fun. You do have a place like the Alamo where you can get alcohol and stuff like that. Right. That would be a good time. But yeah, this is not a movie you sit down and be like, I want to watch a serious horror movie set at Christmas. It just like, I've written a serious Christmas horror story. Bracken McCloud has. I know there are tons of them out there. Like, this is not one of those movies or those pieces of art where you're like, I'm going to enjoy it on a deep mental and emotional level. No, you smoke a bowl or take 6 shots and then you sit down and be like, and just tear ass up. And I think critiquing it like we are right now is hilarious in and of itself. Because I love it. Of
course. That's why I said yes instantly.
I was looking through my getting to Linnea Quigley, because I think she was the biggest name in this movie at the time. In general, I think she's the biggest name in this movie. And unless I'm wrong, I'm trying to think of any other of the other actors.
No, that would be it, because the other guy was more the toy shop owner was Ira or whatever his name was. He was a character actor because I remember him from a bunch of movies in the 80s, and he was pretty much always the same guy.
The vaguely drunken store owner.
Yeah,
pretty much. Yeah.
But when we get to the Leah Quigley scenes, like that also just falls apart, but it's hilarious in so many different ways. Like they're complaining about the Christmas carols that are across the street when they're in the basement. Wow. Because later on, the dude who has pop music on, and by the way, the pop music they paid for in this movie was awful. Maybe they didn't pay for it. I hope they did. Because Billy's killing the Linnea Quigley character, just the Quigley character. I keep saying her full name like it's a fucking royal regal title, but she is horror royalty. He can't hear her screams, but you heard Christmas carols across the street, not screams 5 feet above your head. And I love that, especially since that dude looks like what would happen if Kevin Bacon, I wrote this in my notes. Kevin Bacon and Emilio Estevez had a baby. That would be that dude. Because that's what the dude looks like.
I'm so sorry that I took a drink right then. That could have ended terribly.
It could have ended very badly. Very, very badly.
I mean, you have the fact that she apparently thought the bell that they were hearing was the cat. So she goes and opens the door topless in the middle on Christmas night. And it's apparently cold enough to have snow on the ground. But if you notice, that cat does come into the house when the door is destroyed.
Yep.
Like in the middle of that murder scene, this cat just walks in and I was like, all right, you do not know how to tell a story. You do not know how to set up tension, but you know how to pay off a joke.
Right.
Because that was that was chef's kiss.
Yep.
Good. I do love the fact that door was basically made of cardboard, though. Like he destroys that fucking, like you watch Jack Nicholson in The Shining when he takes that axe to the bathroom door, and because he was a volunteer firefighter, they actually had to put a real door there, according to the legend. Like he had to, even though he still had to work at it.
Right.
Billy kind of just looks at it hard with the axe, and it's just like in pieces. It just explodes like an action movie music video. I love dunking on this movie so much. I almost feel bad for it at this point. I feel like I feel like one of those kids, like, oh my God, this is one of those bully kids. So they go home and listen to Linkin Park.
No, this is one of those situations where everyone listening now feels the need to take care of this movie and go watch it because we were so mean. And because they know that this movie wasn't setting out to be the standard that we're holding it to. No.
And I hope they go out and they watch the movie and they come up with their own jokes as well. And they take it forward. It becomes the cult midnight showing that it should one day. But throughout this both those murder scenes, although I think he should have thrown the dude in the fireplace because that was a missed opportunity. Like, you had a fireplace to your left and a window to your right. How do you go for not the fireplace? Like, that would have been awesome. But anyway, the little girl disappears throughout the entire murder sequence, only to come out at the end. And then he gives her a bloody box cutter.
Hey, he gave her a gift.
He did, but they captured the little girl at the perfect moment. And I don't think she did anything else after it, but she acted her ass off in that second because she just had this look of confusion on her face, like, the fuck? And it was so genuine that I almost think she didn't know what movie she was in. And her parents just like brought it, like, Santa's going to talk to you. Answer honestly that you were a good girl no matter what he asks, and he will get a gift. And I think that's the only direction they gave her. And so everything she does is authentic. And it's brilliant because then he just walks away.
And then she grew up to actually kill people dressed as Santa in real life.
With that same box cutter.
Because she was just so traumatized by the whole situation.
I think that's what the third one is about. Actually, I'll be honest, because I haven't seen it. But if I remember, because I remember reading up, like, how are there 5 fucking movies of this when they can barely make 2? Actually, they can barely make 1. Because again, this one's not really well done. And I think the third movie is about her growing up. And apparently there's actually, I've heard stories that if they hadn't slapped Silent Night, Deadly Night onto it, it would have been a good horror movie in and of itself and would have developed a cult following. But because it had kind of the stench of the franchise at this point, like, it kind of weighed it down. Like, people went in expecting to see, oh, this is what this is supposed to be. And then it wasn't. And people were like, fuck this movie. Which it's on Tubi because Tubi is great. Give me money, Tubi. Give me all the money. I have an expensive Christmas. But I'm going to go for that sponsorship. I'm going to be like those Instagram influencers. But actually, that entire set piece in the house is like a metaphor for the entire movie. There's some cool shit inside of it, a lot of missed opportunities, and then it just kind of trails off. Because again, Billy just walks the fuck out of the house with no real direction in mind. And I was, as we were talking, I was like, that's kind of apt for this entire movie. Because he just, like, it isn't until literally 12 minutes before the end of the movie, you figure out he's slowly making his way to the orphanage. I'm like, why is he slowly making his way to the orphanage? It should be like, I know where I live.
So there's time to kill the priest.
Yeah, well, remember, the cop kills the priest by accident.
No, that's what I meant. I meant from a writing standpoint, it gives time to kill the priest.
Oh, fair enough. Now, from a writing standpoint, because then he has to go kill those sled riders who are all obviously in college. And that's probably, like, we talk about how extraneous the grandpa scene is. The sled riding scene is probably the most extraneous.
Right.
Because one, you have these two obviously in their 20s kids, quote, going to a hill and calling it virgin when, one, it's not a hill, it's barely a slope, and two, there are so many footprints across that snow that what is your definition of virgin? Because I'm going to take you to the legal brothel in Nevada and you'll think they're all virgins, apparently. And then I wrote down this quote, line of dialogue, and it was amazing. Hold on. Are you having a religious experience or are you peeing your pants? And I don't even know what to say about that other than I should start making that my new conversational gambit. When I'm meeting someone new, I'm just going to go up to them, be like, are you having a religious experience or are you peeing your pants? And see what happens. That's going to be my new starting point for all conversations.
And then somebody will say both.
I'll be like, then you are my new friend.
A little from column A and a little from column B.
But like that, my sled isn't stupid, said by someone who is obviously in college. The sled riding hills are like the hill the kids go down is so obviously two different locations that you can't see the top of it, but somehow they can see each other to call to each other when the bullies take the sled. Mm-hmm. But you don't see the beheading, which was kind of cool. The beheading was kind of cool. But
I like how the head rolls down.
Right.
Like, I know it's done in a lot of stuff, but I thought it was pretty nice in this.
You know, it's a horror standby I like. I'm with you on that. I like that. It's so random. I think I first saw it in Sleepy Hollow, the Tim Burton flick.
Okay.
I think that's where I first saw that head roll thing. And then once you recognize it, you're like, oh, you see it pretty much everywhere. I thought Tim Burton was visionary. And then I'm again reminded, no, he's not. I feel like I'm just doing my own like Mystery Science Theater 3000 on this movie.
There's nothing wrong with that.
Look, there are going to be no complaints. At all.
Oh God, this is I'm so glad we picked this movie though, because like if we had picked, because I threw up to you, James, like doing this one, Christmas Evil. Christmas Evil at least takes itself seriously. Like they were trying to make a good movie. It doesn't make any sense either, because wait, he wants to give gifts. He wants to become Santa because he saw Santa go down on his mom, which is apparently the whole antecedent to that movie. And then
obviously Santa is a giver.
Santa is a giver. To mommies,
Santa believes that it's better to give than to receive.
I laid down the giving jokes and you did not disappoint. Well done. But I was watching that kind of to compare, okay, roughly same time period. That came out in 1980. Silent Night, Deadly Night came out in 1984 and somehow looks worse. But like everyone in that movie acted their asses off. Like the dude who was the Santa in Christmas Evil, like he was trying. You could see him, like they were dealing with mental illness and trauma and PTSD. And I love the fact that the dude from The Mist and The Walking Dead is fucking ripped in that movie. Because he plays the brother who's worried about his traumatized older brother to become Santa Claus. Like everyone's acting their asses off in that movie over the stupidest fucking premise. Meanwhile, in Silent Night, Deadly Night, you actually have kind of a potential idea, like that could be really effective, and no one knows what the fuck they're doing, like at all, including the screenwriter who I think wrote one draft, like the first draft. You know that messy copy we're all familiar with, where it's so full of plot holes and Deus Ex Machina. I think I said that right. Probably not, because I don't know Greek.
You're close enough.
What is it?
It's Deus Ex Machina.
Deus Ex Machina. I always mix up the first word. I always love Machina though. I love machines because I was traumatized by Terminator when I was a child. And they just ran with it like, oh, this is good enough. Like after the sled riding scene, we cut to randomly, again, the nun that can magically open locked toy store doors and is really concerned about Billy and knows instantly that it's Billy pretending to be Santa and killing people because reasons. They finally like, oh, we know where he's going now. Good, because no one else fucking did in the entire audience. And
yeah, right.
Like he just starts wandering. And since we have no real sense of location, it's not evident from the time he leaves that he's heading for the orphanage. Again, a cool idea, kinda. It's not that great of an idea. It's okay. But made by people who apparently, before they did any part of their job, had to take almost blackout level levels of alcohol. And we're like, I'm going to write a script today. I'm going to shoot it today. I'm going to act today. And they just did it. When they're talking, what's that?
I said, basically, that feels like exactly what happened. Yeah,
it does. Because they were talking in the police station and she's like, oh my God, the cop says the kid may be nuts, but he's not stupid. And the nun goes, there's logic to it. And I was like, no, there's not. You literally just revealed the movie's almost over. You finally revealed where he's going.
Right.
Like, again, we have no sense of place. I do love the fact that they can't call the orphanage because the line's busy, because an orphan little girl is talking to someone on the phone and no one stopped to wonder, who is that little girl talking to? She's in a fucking orphanage.
I'm telling you, she was ordering pizza for everybody.
And well, then they should have included the delivery, because all she was saying, well, I got this from Santa. And I was like, wait a minute. You have family you can call, and you're still in an orphanage.
Right.
That's cold fucking blooded.
The parents showed up to the orphanage one day like, yeah, that's her. Do you want to take her with you? No, we just want to make sure, she was still here.
Just checking in.
But right. It's when we got to the climax, I kind of was wondering, maybe these guys just don't know what they're doing, but they really wanted to make a movie. Like that DIY can-do spirit that as a punk kid, I really identify with. Like, okay, because like it's clearly filmed over multiple different days. Because when the orphanage finally learns, oh, Billy's coming back, they send the kids outside for reasons. And there's obviously no snow on the ground.
Mm-hmm.
And they try to have a snowball fight with slush. The grass is fucking green. And I was like, okay, they probably picked up this shot later on outside the film schedule. Okay, but then that cop shows up that shoots the deaf priest. And I wrote in my notes, that man deserves to die for no other reason than he has that mustache.
Nice.
But I love the fact that he kills that priest in full view of the kids.
Right.
He's yelling at the priest and the kids don't notice. Santa doesn't notice. We'll get to that. And he shoots him from like 12 feet away. But no one sees the gun or hears the commands until afterwards. And they try to paper it out. Oh, the priest was deaf. Explain the fucking kids then.
They didn't like the priest.
Maybe.
Well, maybe they looked at him like, finally, somebody did something about this priest who's been, being very priestly.
I see where you're going with that, sir. I get that reference.
Like, and here I was just going to say it was a police officer who felt his life was in danger.
No, that was I was going to leave that one up for you, James. I mean,
that Santa did not comply. You mean when you're a Santa in the neighborhood, you got to know how to act, especially when police pull you over.
Exactly. There you go.
But
that's what he gets for wearing those gang colors.
Oh man. You win this round. I'll admit defeat.
Yeah, that was good. That was a good one. I bow before the master on that one. I mean, then they explain the death priest, and they're like, "There's a killer Santa," and they're saying it loudly amongst all these kids. I'm like, say it a little louder for the kids who didn't hear you in the kitchen,
Right.
And so the cop goes to investigate, and it's like, oh, look, a shed. I must investigate because, every Catholic orphanage must have a hobo shed attached to the property.
Of course.
Well, I love the fact that when Billy does show up, he kills the cop with the axe, lets the guy fall, and then walks away. But the next shot, you see not only the axe in his hand, but it dripping.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, that is some blood. I don't even know how blood could last that long. It's movie magic. And I feel so blessed that the movie decided to, show me that bit of magic of blood lasting from the shed all the way back to the front of the orphanage. But it's clean when he goes inside.
There's so much wrong here. Yeah.
I'm just going through all of it. I like the fact that the nuns are, when they're waiting for Billy to show up, they are trying to get the traumatized kids who just saw their priest/Santa shot in the back 8 times to sing. And Mother Superior's brilliant line of dialogue is, come on, we need altos. And that's how you know that Billy's going to be let in, because the kids don't know any better, in spite of the fact you've been screaming for 20 minutes that there's a killer Santa on the loose coming for the orphanage.
Right.
Maybe he meant to do it.
What, the kid let Billy in?
Yeah,
maybe.
yeah.
I can't.
Yeah, he was like, wait, somebody's gonna kill this old nun for me? Cool,
I don't have to sing alto anymore.
Yeah, see?
Actually, I don't remember who the kid was. Was it the kid who says naughty at the very, very end? Was it?
I'm not sure.
I don't think it was Ricky, because that was Ricky who said it, right?
Ricky says naughty. I mean, I don't know if it's necessarily. They never say that that's his brother. The only time you know that his brother's still with him is when he's getting punished back when Billy still has the mullet.
Right.
He's like, your brother's a nutcase, Ricky. And the kid goes, that is not. And then you don't see him again. And I'm trying to remember. And if the audience would be still paying attention enough to realize at the end of the movie that that's Ricky. I'm glad you knew it was Ricky, because I was going to call him Timmy, because I couldn't remember the kid's fucking name. because my wife and daughter were watching Muppet Christmas Carol earlier. It's Tiny Tim. I love Mother Superior yelling, "There is no Santa Claus in a room full of young orphans." Billy's final words of, "You're safe now. Santa Claus is gone." Like, holy shit, dude. Like, this movie just, oh God. And I said we should talk about this movie. Getting to the end of it, I'm like, we shouldn't have.
No. There are no regrets on this one. I mean, this, whether it's like a greatly structured film or a film where it's kind of like there's a lot of implausibility, it still works because there's stuff that we can talk about, which we've been talking about.
Yeah. I just, from the last time I was here to this time, I was like, the quality has dropped off in terms of what I'm offering. Like, we had Behind the Mask, the best meta slasher ever made, because fuck Scream. I know a lot of people love Scream. I fucking hate that movie.
We're talking about it in 2 weeks. Yay.
Between Behind the Mask and then going to Deadly Night, I feel like I do have to come back and do a better movie.
I mean, we've already picked it. It's a great movie. It'll be fine.
It's a great movie. But I don't know. Like, this movie kind of gets, in the glut of slashers of the 80s, it kind of gets ignored. And I don't know whether it should be or not, because it is great, but for the wrong reasons. Like, Madman is just a terrible movie that should be ignored, except for the fact that, you know, the lady from Dawn of the Dead is in it. The Burning is great just because it has great Savini effects, so it's remembered for that.
Yep.
But like, Silent Dead had 5 movies, and no one really remembers it. Like, it really doesn't exist beyond the cover art for most people.
So for me, like, having not seen it in a really long time, if ever, it's not a movie that I would show most people. But if it was somebody who was into slashers and into the 80s feel and they hadn't seen it, I would definitely want to watch it with them. So it's not that I think it should be erased or ignored, but like, it's just not in my top, 1,472 movies I would show people.
See, I feel like this is a movie you have to show people if you want to riff on it. Like, this is a perfect riff movie.
Yes, definitely.
Unintentionally riff. Like, they obviously set out to do something. I'm not quite at this point still what that was, but it's a slasher, but it's never listed among slashers. And I don't know, Don, what do you think? You've seen it before.
Well, here's the thing with it for me. I think it comes down to, and this may just be with mainstream people. I think not just the quality of the film, but because it's overshadowed by so many other slashers from that time period of the 80s, that it's easy to forget it. But then you also have to factor in it's related to Christmas. So you can watch Friday the 13th, whether it's a Friday the 13th that month or not. Yeah. You can watch Nightmare on Elm Street, whether you live on that street. But I think for a Christmas movie, like, there's only a small window to where you can really get into. Same thing. I mean, not saying that the same thing happened to Gremlins, but Gremlins is a Christmas movie. It's a Christmas horror movie. But I think a lot of people ignored Christmas because Christmas wasn't the big issue with the film, or at least the main story of the film, or something being related to Christmas. Mm-hmm. Whereas there are other Christmas horror movies, I would say, like Black Christmas, whichever version you want to look at. Better Watch Out is another one. Which is
Christmas Evil. That's Christmas Evil.
Okay.
They retitled it.
Oh, no, wait. Oh, the one from just a few years ago?
Oh, no. The original title of Christmas Evil is Better Watch Out.
Okay. Yeah, because there was one that came out a few years ago.
Oh, yeah, you're right. I kept meaning to see that.
It's very well done, but I think it's the same thing, where it was a Christmas movie or a Christmas season movie, to where people easily kind of pass on it because, they might be watching traditional Christmas movies and not looking for a Christmas horror film. Yeah. And the same thing with Krampus. Like, until it's around this time of year, I never hear anybody talking about the film Krampus, and I'm not gonna hear about them watching it in the summer. And I think that's probably one of those things, as far as films that are specifically built around Christmas, that are horror films, end up, I guess, suffering because of that. Whereas you have other films like Gremlins, it's a big budget film. It's got good production behind it. It's got, toys that are associated with it. So it becomes part of the mainstream culture. And then you forget that it's a Christmas movie because you're kind of like, oh, well, this is kind of a creepy little creature movie. It's a horror film. It's a comedy. It's whatever you want it to be. But oh my God, I forgot it was a Christmas movie. So there are people I know. Oh.
The thing about Krampus, though, is that if you want to hear people talk about it, you can tune in next week. All right, go ahead.
Nicely done.
Thanks.
I agree with you on that. No, here's your point. I'm sorry.
Oh, no. I was just going to say that, like, people I know who aren't into horror films, they're not going to watch, unfortunately, they're not going to watch a horror Christmas movie. They'll go for something that's more mainstream, like Scream or any of the Mount Rushmore of slasher films. Yeah. They're going to go for that. Before they go for, well, I want to watch a movie about how fucked up Christmas could be, which I personally love. I would love to see a bunch of bad stuff happen on Christmas because Christmas, for what it's worth, is so dystopian.
God, yes.
It's like, oh, now we have to be nice to each other. I'm like, well, what the fuck happened? Well, the calendar switched from October 31st to November 1st. So now we have to pretend as though all the stuff that happened between January 1st and October 31st is no longer relevant. You can't be mean to people during this time period. And for me, it's dystopian because I'm like, that takes everything away. Like, have people be mean to each other because that's what's in people's nature. Like, don't lie to me about how human beings are. We're still shitty, no matter what the calendar says.
I agree with you. And I think what also doesn't bode well in its favor, because by that same logic, Halloween could fall very much into it. But because the first one was so well made over a nonsensical plot, like John Carpenter proved his movie making, like the reason why he's a legend is because he took something that makes literally no fucking sense, logical sense, and he made it well acted, well produced, well structured. Everything was pristine about it, except the fact that the idea makes no. And it kind of rose above the ranks. If you had these same people take that same story that John Carpenter made and try to make Halloween, just swap the crew, and Halloween would be the same Silent Night, Deadly Night. But I bet John Carpenter could make a better Silent Night, Deadly Night.
I think, you know what, if you give him control of it and you give him the opportunity to make the music for it and things like that, like I could imagine like a really creepy, like jingle bells or sleigh bells in the background where it's not a kid that's traumatized by seeing his parents get killed. It's someone who doesn't like Christmas or like, I mean, that would end up being me, I guess, but someone who doesn't like Christmas. So we get away from it's a mentally ill, it's a mentally ill mental patient that's running around killing people. It's somebody who decides like, oh, I'm going to dress up as Santa Claus and I'm going to become famous for doing this stuff. And then people are not, the terror is going to live with them because now they're going to be traumatized by the fact that, oh my God, my dad got killed by Santa Claus or whatever happens to be. So it becomes bigger than I'm just going to kill people. It's now going to be, I can now ruin an entire holiday for generations.
You mentioned the music and I was just like, I would love to hear John Carpenter's version of Christmas. I would love to hear that.
No kidding.
Wouldn't that be like, it's not one of those things you'd ever put together, but once you do, you're like, I want to hear that exist in the world. Mm-hmm. And I can thank you, Don, for saying that. Because now I'm like, not only do I want him to do the reboot that James keeps mentioning, that they're rebooting this, which, oh my God, why? But I want John Carpenter helmets. I know he's basically retired now, I think. But he needs to make this movie. That should be his final movie. He got famous on one holiday. He makes one final holiday movie and then passes away gently in his sleep, probably still smoking a cigarette.
Well, speaking of holidays, I got to ask this question because I had it in my notes and I want to get your opinions on this. So Santa Claus, I guess, is typically the one who's, seen as the king of holiday creatures or beings or whatever it is, right? Because of the notoriety with it. And it it goes beyond whatever your cultural exclusivity would be. Yeah. Now, if you were to create another holiday type horror film, I mean, Halloween's already taken. What Halloween?
Ooh,
What
I know where you're
holiday
going.
character would actually be probably the most terrifying, or the one that you would, I don't know, you would think that would probably become the most terrifying, or the one who could create the most havoc?
Clearing my mind and just kind of going where it wants to go, I think you could do a really good Valentine's Day horror movie. Not My
Okay.
Bloody Valentine, none of that shit.
Okay.
Like, what if a guy really believed he was a matchmaker and he was unsatisfied by how his matches worked out? And so he's on the hunt to make the most perfect couple, and he'll create situations where these people are drawn together. That could be cool. Because I was like riffing through, okay, there's a Leprechaun, which is vaguely St. Patrick's Day. I think there was an Uncle Sam slasher at one point for 4th of July. We have Halloween, of course. We have April Fool's Day. We have Christmas.
Mm-hmm.
What else do we have? Shit.
I'm just thinking about a deranged Easter bunny running around killing people.
And that would be fantastic. You know, if they did it like they did that. Do you ever see the movie Black Sheep? Not the David Spade movie.
Yeah, it was a little while ago. Yeah.
Yeah. Like if they made it like that, like real New Zealand, like something that Peter Jackson's like Hellspawn made.
Okay.
I would be down for that. A deranged Easter bunny made by the people who like, and you have to make it in New Zealand because they don't understand holidays anyway. They're New Zealanders. They're Kiwis. I say that, and I love the Frighteners, and I actually like Peter Jackson. I like the Frighteners, and Dead Alive. You gotta love Dead Alive. Yeah, but if I were tasked to write something holiday themed, I would probably make a vaguely slasher Valentine's Day.
Okay.
But I don't know if I don't know what perspective I tell it from, because what separates Silent Night, Deadly Night, and Christmas Evil and stuff like that from, say, Halloween or the Leprechaun or other vaguely holiday themed things is it's told from the perspective. The movie's told from Billy's perspective. It cuts to the nun periodically, but it's actually told from the killer's perspective. Unfortunately, that was a bad move on their part. As opposed to every other one else where it's told from the perspective of babysitters or the family or that moves out to the weird house with the suitcase with the leprechaun in it. And so like a Valentine's, I'm actually kind of interested in that now. Actually, it's funny you say that because I'm pairing that with, and the last time I was on here was to promote Standalone. And when I made Standalone, one of the cool things my publisher did was they made trading cards.
Yes, I have them right here.
And there was one trading card. Hold on, I have it. I'm right near my ego shelf. Where are my trading cards? One of these books have the trading cards in it. Now which one was it? Well, I did have a scarecrow. Harvest Time. The Cameron Burns card. He's the bio I wrote for this card, and Luke Spooner did the design on the cover, and it was amazing. Cameron Burns is a nice guy. Why don't you believe him? Sure, he lied to you about winning a getaway to an elite yet oddly abandoned ski lodge. And sure, he's been picking off your friends all weekend. And of course, it might look creepy how he keeps messaging you with information that lets you know he knows your every move and thoughts. But that just means he cares. That just means he knows what's best for you. Cameron Burns is a nice guy. And I'm like, I could probably pair this with a Valentine's Day thing.
There you go.
All right.
And you already know your kill count, and you have some trivia there. I mean, I think
actually it's funny, the trivia, because the trivia for all of these was like I was just pulling stuff. Ted Justin were the first names of Max Booth's two protagonists in Carnivorous Lunar Activities. A book he's now disowned because he's not happy with his publisher, which I can't blame. But it's a great novel. I hope he gets the rights to it someday and can put it out elsewhere because it's a great book. And he ended up teaching at Booth University. Yeah, the cards are cool. But to answer your question, Don, I'd probably do something with Valentine's Day. Just like if you want to upend a holiday that is seen as innocent, like Hallmark has kind of taken over Christmas. Hallmark has also taken over Valentine's Day. I mean, we always have the cynical, like either people who legitimately don't like Christmas or they're just Grinches. I have a kid. You have to like Christmas in my house. Just because I have a kid who loves Christmas. And I grew up super poor. So Christmas was the time when we, let our hair down a little bit with whatever money we saved. So like, all right, if you want to upend another holiday, I'd probably do Valentine's Day, like a Cupid type fucking character. But because I don't write supernatural all too well. I did it in standalone. I've done it in a few pieces. I would make it like a guy who thinks he's like a Cupid, not mentally ill. He's just like, he thinks he's completely fine. Other people would think he's fucking weird, but like not mentally ill, but like he thinks he's cute. He's like, I'm going to do this. I do too, actually. Think about it.
Mine's a little darker. The holiday I would pick, I would make the scariest person you've ever seen, and he would kill like hundreds of thousands of Americans, and it would be President's Day. What do you think?
God damn it, James. That sounds like a huge idea. It sounds wonderful. That is the greatest idea I've ever heard.
And it was actually
imagine the marketing would be like everyone's saying this is the scariest.
Oh God.
It feels like it never ends.
Oh God.
To tie it back into Christmas, it's the gift that keeps on giving.
You're telling me. No, I love in a weird sense, even though I've only written one holiday specific story. I actually kind of love holiday things, like, because as you pointed out, Don, like it's only November 1st through January 30th. Like people are like, oh, we've been good to each other all year. We love each other. It's like, that's horseshit. Right. I mean, you have the snarky hipster Gen X / millennial / Gen Z attitude towards it sometimes, where it's like, no, we're really not, but they kind of are. And whenever you see that, it's really like people who wish that it was like that, and they feel disappointed that it's not. They aren't just like, no, this is horseshit, and just objectively, this is horseshit. But I always love mashing genres. Like I never got into sci-fi because I hate space opera, but you put like crime in a sci-fi novel, like William Gibson's Neuromancer, I'm fucking there. Bad Santa, crime comedy in a Christmas movie. Love it. The Ref, same deal, except it has Kevin Spacey, and that's a problem. But he gets beaten up a lot, so I guess that's okay. Like Dennis Leary. But I love stuff like that. Like, the reason why I even mentioned this movie to James in the first place is because we were talking about whenever we did talk, it would be coming out around Christmas. And I had mentioned, I love, like, Bracken McLeod wrote a story, and it's not in his collection, either of his collections, White Nights or 13 Views of Suicide Woods. And I've told him personally it needs to be in his next book collection. It's called Can I Whisper It? And it's about a Santa essentially undercover. And it's a great crime story, but it's set at Christmas. And again, has that base human level of kind of upending the traditional thing. And when I read that story, I was like, I got to write a Christmas story too. So I had another undercover Santa, but he's really just a god who's trying to get away from his faithful. And a security guard ended up discovering who he is by accident. And I just love. Oh, it was a fun story. It was supposed to be in an anthology, but that publishing house was caught up in a scandal that I pulled my story from because fuck those people. Chizing.
Yeah, I don't know who it is, but 3 times.
No, it's Chizing. It was supposed to be. It was going to come out. I written it specifically for this anthology that was going to be edited by Craig Wolf, who wrote a really great novel called Something of the Nightbirds. I forget the word, but I blurbed it because it was a really great novel. But he was editing this anthology. I was like, I'm going to write a fucking Santa story. And I set it in Florida, and I made the main character I named all the characters out of characters from The Thing, which is my favorite holiday movie, because it's set during winter. And I was so proud to get into it because I used to want to be in Chizing so much back in the day when they were like, oh, we're Chizing. And it's like, yes, you're fucking Chizing. And then when all the shit went down about their abuse and their non-payment, I was like, fuck that. Ended up appearing in, my ego shelf is in a mess right now. It ended up appearing in an issue of Dark Moon Digest a few years later. And I was always really happy with it because it's so weirdly it's non-holiday themed at all, but it's very holiday themed. I love stories like that where you mash in like these other elements and kind of create something new. Unfortunately, with Halloween, you can do it. With the Halloween movies, you can do it. With even like April Fool's Day, which was kind of clever, if you've ever seen it. Silent Night, Deadly Night did not do it because it's barely a Christmas movie because Billy doesn't wear the beard.
That's right.
I noticed that. No. I noticed that after the sled riding scene, and I was like, "Wait, he's not."
Never does.
Does he wear it when he's talking to the little girl? All creepy.
No, he's wearing it at that point. He's wearing the beard when he's in the toy store. He's wearing the beard.
But not the toy store. Like when he's in the house talking to that little.
No. Yeah, it's gone at that point. Yeah, he doesn't.
And the kid just believes it's Santa. He's this obviously young guy covered in blood. Oh, it's Santa. Like, dude, what have your been your experiences with Santa up to this point that this is not phasing you? That's still the best kill, though. I think Silent Night, Deadly Night, in spite of how bad it is, redeems itself for the antelope horn death.
I love that death.
That is a great death. And you could tell they couldn't figure out how to do it until afterwards. They couldn't figure out how to get the horns in because it's all done in shadow, which actually is more effective. But that redeems it for that alone. Because that's creative, at least. I thought he was going to strangle the dude with the phone cord. I'm like, you already strangled someone. Do something new.
Mm-hmm. Let's jump into movie recommendations. If people enjoyed this film, Paul, what do you think they should watch as well?
Definitely Christmas Evil, which was originally titled Better Watch Out back in the 80s, but there's now a new movie called that because that Dawn reminded me. So definitely see Christmas Evil if you want to see people take a ridiculous premise, but actually try this time.
Love it. Let's see. I'm going to go with something Don mentioned just to piss him off. So I'm going to say Gremlins because anytime anything is Christmas, I think you should watch Gremlins. I have to throw in Anna and the Apocalypse because it's one of my favorite movies of all time. You should watch it immediately and just live write me through the whole thing so that I can be mad at how much you don't like it. No, I'm kidding. It really is one of my favorite movies. I just rewatched it the other night with my sister-in-law. I forced her to watch it. But yeah, anytime Christmas comes up, I got to throw that in. If we're going just crazy, like what the fuck am I watching slashers? I would actually throw in a couple Friday the 13th to go with this. I think that could be really fun together, but not the good ones. Mm-hmm. I'd go like 5 just to fuck with everything. Anyway.
No, all right, Don. Go Jason goes to Manhattan. Jason takes Manhattan because it makes no sense.
Oh, you mean Jason's on a boat for an hour and a half and then shows up in Manhattan for a couple minutes?
Yes.
But has a really awesome death with a dude's head. So, I mean, there's that.
I think that's fun to compare with us.
All right, Don, give us your 1,472 movies.
All right. Some of these I already mentioned, and actually a couple of them got mentioned when we're talking. So I'll mention the mentioned ones first. So The Shining, Exorcist, Better Watch Out, and Psycho and Halloween we mentioned. Scream we mentioned. I would include, because of 80s slashers, the 70s. Texas Chainsaw Massacre, Black Christmas we talked about for a short period. Sleepaway Camp.
Oh God.
Any of the classic slashers for that matter. Last House on Left, stuff like that. Krampus, which would be a newer Christmas horror film. Better Watch Out
before next week. Oh
yes. And something James did not see coming.
Oh boy.
Full Metal Jacket.
Ooh.
Really?
Full Metal Jacket for 2 reasons. I consider it a Christmas movie because they celebrate Christmas in the movie. And 2, it deals with someone who is so ridiculously traumatized that they end up lashing out as a result. And then you also have to deal with, is what Joker says, with that whole duality of man, of which can come in so many different ways of like, basically what the hell is normal? And the fact that you're dealing with, in this case, a war where people are not, they're not receiving appropriate mental health care, before, during, and after. And they're just treating it as, oh, well, you'll just be okay. So basically what I'm saying is the DI instructor is Mother Superior, and Mother Superior is the DI instructor.
Well, all right.
Vincent D'Onofrio is a way better actor.
Yeah. Oh my God. Yes.
Holy shit. I was thinking, it's funny you mentioned it because I was thinking about that actor the other day because it's rumored he might be in Hawkeye as the Kingpin. And I was thinking about I legitimately enjoy his acting.
That's awesome.
That would be awesome. It's probably not going to happen.
I didn't even think about that. I didn't think about that being a possibility. That'd be great.
I read the comics, so I know Echo was trained by the Kingpin. He runs the Tracksuit Mafia.
Right.
But just because everyone's figured out, Marvel probably isn't doing it. It's probably it's
going to be Mephisto. Mephisto's going to be in charge of
Mephisto
of the track.
It's the multiverse, and the X-Men are here. We're gonna see. They're gonna make another boner joke. I was just thinking, I'm like, he is just a legitimately good actor.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like trying to think of beyond Full Metal Jacket and Law and Order. He was and Daredevil. I'm like, what else has he been in that I want to watch? You don't notice him.
Men in Black.
Yeah, he was the Edgar suit. Because when you know it, you don't notice him. You're just like, oh, this is well, and then you do notice him, and you can't unnotice him.
Right.
He's a good actor, but once you know it's Vincent D'Onofrio, he just becomes Vincent D'Onofrio in whatever role he's in. Like you're totally taken up by what the story is, and then you're like, oh wait, that's Vincent D'Onofrio. And it's like glass shattering. Oh yeah.
One more movie I would throw in is Secret Santa as well. That's a fun Christmas film with lots of killing.
I've never even heard of that.
Oh, you should watch it. There's some fun kills. You'll enjoy it. Trust me. Let's bring it back to you, man. Like, tell everybody where they can find you on social media and pick up your stuff. And what you got coming up, if anything.
Right now I'm just shopping stuff around. I do have what's coming out. I have a new short story in an anthology called The Dead Inside. It's an anthology about identity horror. And actually I ended up writing a sequel to my novella Bones Are Made to Be Broken, which was weird because I've never written a sequel before. I also have a story called Feeling Like a Big Kid at the Beginning of the End. That's going to be coming out eventually in Chiral Mad 5. And then everything else I'm just kind of shopping around because I'm trying to get a new collection out. Just because I have enough pieces and they're just kind of lying around all over the place, and I like having things all together instead of saying buy this magazine, buy this anthology, buy this book. They're all right there, and shopping that around, and I'm shopping a novel around and stuff like that, and I'm writing a new novella that's just fucking weird. But in terms of what actually people can see, a story called Detritus, 10 Pieces in The Dead Inside, and a short story called Feeling Like a Big Kid at the Beginning of the End in Chiral Mad 5. That's coming out in the spring and winter of this year.
Very cool. And what is your Twitter?
Oh yeah. Oh, my socials. You can find me under the very creative handle of P_M_Anderson, Paul Michael Anderson, on Twitter. Facebook, I kind of keep locked. And Instagram, I kind of keep locked because there's nothing really on there. Actually, students have started finding me on Instagram, so I immediately block them.
I remember those days.
Immediately. It happened twice today. I was like, block. And I know it's going to come. I'll go to school on Monday. Like, you blocked me. I'm like, damn, Skippy. Even though I don't put anything on Instagram except what I'm like reading at that point. I don't even put my kid on Instagram. I don't put my kid on anything really, but and my website is called thenothingspace.net.
Which I love. I love that name.
I it's only because one of my illustrator for my first collection, he made a really cool image that went with the story In the Nothing Space, I Am What You Made Me. And I was like, that's really clever. I like that picture. So I made it my banner. And then I was like, I don't have a website, so I need to get a website. And then I actually need to pay for it. So I could have that title. And I was like, because PaulMichaelAnderson.com is just too fucking long.
I could see that.
Like,
that's why mine's just asshole.com.
See, that's nice. See, that works. I went the Stephen Graham Jones route because his name's really long too. So his is just called Demon Theory, which is an also website name. But it's the name of a short story of his. So I was like, okay, I'll do the same thing. Mine's the Nothing Space because I don't post nearly enough on it. I need to update that actually.
We all have that problem.
If you're at all a public figure, even on the most minor sense, you have to constantly be updating your interwebs.
All right, man. Well, thank you for coming back. And I promise we will do the other film that we talked about very soon.
Excellent. I'd love to.
It.
Yep. I need to rewatch it because I haven't watched it in a few years, and I need to rewatch it because it's awesome.
I won't tell anybody what it is, but they should watch Frailty before then. All right. So we'll wrap it up for this week. As always, I am James Sabata.
And I'm Don Guillory, still naughty.
Oh, my goodness.
Exactly. And hopefully we'll see you back here next week at thenecronama.com.